Hello, all. Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon. And here we are on Friday. And we are talking about what's new in Business Channel 2026 or 26, aka 2025 release wave 1. Today we'll talk about a new AL magic, and that's about increment string. Now, before we start, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channel. All the videos regarding Business Channel 26 new features will be available in the pinned comment and the description of each video which talks about it. So head up to those and watch those. At the end, there will be a link to the common places that you should be watching. But let's get started. So let's go to a little bit of background before we start talking about the new feature. For all these years, people who don't know about increment string, let's have a quick look. So as per Microsoft documentation, increment string is a method that increases a positive number or decreases a negative number inside a string by 1. That means if you have a number like ABC001 and you would like to increase it by 1, you can use incstr, and that just does the magic for you. For all these years, it was kind of legacy available from NAV and still in Business Central. Now, here are some remarks about it. If a string contains more than one number, then only the number closest to the end of the string is changed. For example, if this is the number, this will change, 0 will change to 1, and if this is the number, then 2 will change to 3. So if there are multiple numbers, it will only consider the last nearest number to the end of the string. If a string contains a negative number, then it is decreased by 1. So if it is -1 and you use increment string, it will go to -56. 0 is considered as a positive number, so therefore it increased by 1. That means it changes to 1. When a string contains a number such as 99, it increments to 100, and the length of the output string increases 1 because now it's one more character. If a string does not contain any number, the output of a string is empty. For example, it changes to blank, AAA. It only increment integer numbers within the string, no decimals. So if you have decimals, it will not consider decimal, it will just increment the last number, which is 99 to 100. And here are some examples. The link of this Microsoft documentation will be available in the description and the pinned comment, so you can go ahead and if you don't know about it, watch it and try it. But let's understand what changed in Business Central 26, because that's we are here for. So with the Business Central 26, Microsoft have introduced an enhancement, or should I call it an enhancement? Let's understand why it was done. So for some time, if you have to increase a positive number or decrease a negative number by 1, we use this increment string on the text data type. This is very useful for the number series and other scenarios. But if we wanted to make changes more than 1, let's say if I wanted to increase a number by 5 or by 10, that was not possible, and we had to write the custom logic and the custom code to support these kind of scenario. What happened now? A new overload. What is an overload? Additional kind of implementation of this method is added in V26, where you can define how much you want to increase or decrease a number in the string variable. This allows you to increment the number series or any other similar series for more than one position in one go. There are some key points that we need to remember, and we'll do a demo about it. That while decreasing a positive number, Microsoft recommends that you use a try function to catch the cases where it cannot be decreased further, and we'll see what that means. Again, the documentation doesn't talk more about the rules of the games as it was talking about increment string, so we'll test it out. So how we'll test it out? Let's get into it. I prepared a very small demo about it. Here's a page which have a source string where user will input the string that they would like to increment or decrement. And then it talks about a integer variable where user will specify how much he or she want to increase or decrease the value to. And then there is a group which displays the output of that result, and then there is an action which just calls the increment string overload, which supports two parameters. One is the string and another is increment by. Till now we were using the first method, which is increment string text, so it was only incrementing it by 1. And then if you look at it here, now I have an overload for it, which allows me to do this new thing. Okay, so let's see it in action without wasting further time. So here's the page. Let's try to write some logic or rules and see why and what Microsoft is saying. So let's say this is customer balance. Let's take a number 54. Please contact customer. Okay, and I would like to increase this 54 by 5 digits. When I click on execute action, now it says that 54 plus 5 is 59 and contact customer. Let's try with the two numbers into it. Okay, let's at the end of it, let's say that the customer, please contact customer 1000. Okay, now let's see what happens. Does it take increment both, or does it only takes the first one? So now it says the balance is 54 and please contact customer 1005, because it, as per the rule of increment string, picked up the last or the closest integer value at the end of the string, as we read into this article. And let me open that, this one. So this one still works in the same way, that if it is contained more than one number, then the closest to the end will be updated. If the string contains a negative number, then it is decreased by the same amount. So this time let's do the other check, which is that the customer balance is minus 345. Okay, let's see what happens. Execute action, and it incremented it by 5 and changed it to as in minus 5, and then decreased it to 350. Okay, that also works in the same way. 0 is considered as a positive number, so if I do the balance as 0, not minus 0, 0 for sure, and I increment it by 58, it says it's a positive number and it increases it to 58. Okay, now what happens when there is a digit where I make the increment and it kind of increases the count of it, right? The placement of it. So if my number or the balance is, let's say 75, then the string will kind of go beyond 100, and it does go beyond 100. Okay. If a string does not contain any number, the output of the string is empty. So if my string does not contain any number and I try to increment it, still works and says empty. Now let's try this number. If the string contains this, which is a decimal number, let's see what happens. I'm hoping it works in the same way. Let's see. Yeah, so it just increases the numeric value of the first number closest to the end. Okay, now that's all. But let's test out something which is undocumented. If I say 15 and increment it by minus 5, does it make it minus? Yes, it does change it to 10. So it does operate that increase or decrease by, and it consider that factor that's needed. But then Microsoft also said into this that make sure that when you are making it decreasing the number, you should use a try function, and let's understand why. So if my value instead of 15 here, let's keep it 15. If I make it minus 15, what happens? this should change to 0. Great. If I make it to minus 16, if you try to do that, and you'll not do it from a user interface, but think about it from a code perspective, when you have a logic written and you're trying to do this. When you try to execute this, it actually ends up with an error message that the result of incrementing cannot be negative. So you can't go negative, and that will only happen when you're trying to decrease a number. And that's the reason that Microsoft is suggesting us to use a try catch function to catch the errors if there are any, which is one of these error messages. Now what happens when you are trying to, let's say, make it let's make it 105, and in 105 I'm trying to decrease it by 6 or 7, and I try to do that. You need to remember that when it makes the reduction, and if the digits change from a 3-digit to a 2-digit, it'll add the zeros wherever needed. So keep that in mind, that will add leading zeros if applicable. So you'll not get 98, you'll always get 098, or so on and so forth. If I reduce it by minus 10, you'll not get as 95, you'll get 095. And if I reduce it by 100, you'll not get 5, you'll actually get 005. So while writing the code, keep that in mind, that whenever you are trying to decrease a number, it'll add leading zeros wherever applicable. So you can't just process it as the as 5. You can't think of processing it as 5. It'll be converted as 005 in this kind of scenario. Having said that, do you think that this helps in the situation where you can kind of make changes to your integer part in your string using the new overload that's available with increment string? If yes, let me know into the comments. Now 3 things, as I say at the end of the video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channel. If you have any comments or questions about this video, add it into the comments. If there is a specific thing, maybe the try catch function, what are those? Add that into the comment section and we'll convert it to a video if needed. And at the end, if you haven't shared this, please share this video with at least 1 people on your social media who is kind of struggling with this, and we helped a larger group of people with this channel. That's the whole idea of this channel. I'll see you sooner than later into the next video. Until then, keep learning and keep sharing whatever you're learning. Thank you and have a nice day.